All right. What goes in the first blank? The box up there. 15's odd number, right? What did I tell you to do? What? Come on. What did we say to do with the odd numbers for B? 15's odd, right? You guys all realize that, right? Remember, what's the rule for the blank? B divided by 2 squared, right? So since B is odd, I told you to just write it as the odd number over 2 and then square it. So what's 15 times 15?
285.
Right. 225. And what's 2 times 2?
4.
4. So that's what should be in there. Okay, if you put the decimal, it's okay, but I'm telling you, leave it as a fraction for when you have to actually solve one like that. Because it's much, much easier to solve when it's in fraction form to simplify than it is with the decimals. Some of you were writing decimals last night. And again, technically it's not wrong, but it's very hard to simplify the way we're supposed to simplify these when it's in decimal form. Okay, number 2, it says solve this. So, I look at it, I see that there's no GCF, but I also see that this first term and this third term are both positive perfect squares, so it could be one of those special ones, right? So I take the square root of x squared, I take the square root of 64, and I multiply those two answers, and I see that it's half of b, right? So that tells me it is one of those special ones already, right? One of those trinomial squares or perfect square trinomials. So I can factor it to look like this, right? And these two numbers that I got, square root of x squared and the square root of 64, are the two numbers that go in there. Now, is it plus or minus here?
Minus.
Minus. It's whatever's in front of the b, right there. So that's minus. Now, in order to solve this, I got to get rid of that squared part. So what did we do yesterday to get rid of the squared part? Square root both sides. So those of you that weren't here, Sammy and Kennedy and Olivia, we square root at this point, both sides. Okay? So remember, the square root of something squared, we always say, is itself, right? The square root symbol and the squared symbol just cancel each other out. So the left side here is just x minus 8. Okay, what do I have to remember at this point? Plus or minus symbol. When we do this step, our answer on the right side has a plus or minus in front of it. Because a positive something squared or a negative something squared works. Because you get a positive, you do it. Now, what we're supposed to do here is simplify it like we've done in the past. So what number can I pull out front? What's the square root of 4? 2. So the 2 comes out front, and then the 5 stays under the radical sign. So we simplified the radical. Now to finish, remember, our goal is when we're solving equations to get x by itself, right? So I got to add the 8 to get x by itself. So again, I cannot add 8 to 2 radical 5. They're not like terms. So I just write 8 plus or minus 2 radical 5. And there's my answer. In simplest form, simplest radical form. No decimal. Okay, that's the way we want it to look. Any questions on that? Those of you that weren't here, does that make sense? A little bit, at least. No questions? Okay, now, number 3, what's going on here? What do I have to do? We got to switch them, right? We want the x squared and the x together. And we want the constant on the other side, right? And I would check to make sure that's not a perfect square. Is 27 a perfect square? No, because, if it was a perfect square and it had to be positive, it might have been one like this, right? Once I move the x over, but it's not. So I'm going to bring the 4x over by subtracting. We're going to add our blank, and I'm going to take the 27, the constant, to the other side by adding. So it's positive 27 on the other side. Sometimes we mess that up. That's something we shouldn't be messing up, right? That's something we get in a hurry on, and then we mess up on our sign. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this problem into one of these special ones. This one was already special to start. Okay? So what we do is we take half of 4, which is 2, and we square that. 2 times 2 is 4. That goes in both blanks. It's always plus blank, those of you that weren't here. Always plus blank. Also, what always must be true about A? It's got to be 1, remember? So those of you that weren't here yesterday, in order to complete the square, that's what we call this, that A value has to be 1. So it was, so we're good there. So again, I can factor it now to look like that. So I get it to look like this one. Then I can take the square root of both sides. Again, it's just the square root of x squared, whatever's in front of the b, and the square root of that number squared, and then just add those together. That's 31. And then I do my square root. So I get x minus 2 plus or minus 31 won't break down. It's a prime number. It's just 1 times 31. So to finish up, I just add the 2. So I get 2 plus or minus square root of 31. Okay, so that's what we were doing yesterday. Hopefully, what I saw on homework, you guys did pretty good. A few of us were forgetting, once we got here, to take the square root of both sides and finish it up. Okay? Some of us forgot that A had to be 1. But again, we're going to practice some more of these today. So hopefully going over it again today will be okay. So we did what? 2 to what? 12 or 10? 12, and then 20 to 30, right? Even? All right. So number 2 was already at this point. So you just had to take the square root of both sides and finish it up. And it was negative 2 and positive 6. For number 4, it was already one of these. So you had to factor it. It was going to be x minus 1 squared equals 3. And then take the square root and then add the 1. So you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 3 for number 4. Number 6, you just had to fill in the blank and then factor it. You didn't have to actually solve it then. So it was 36 went in the blank, and then when you factored it, it was x minus 6 squared. Number 8, you had to add the blanks, which would have been 9. And then you would have factored in the x minus 3 squared equals 5. And then take the square root of both sides, finish it up. So it's 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. Number 10, let's go ahead and look at that one because it had a 2 for A value, just to go over what we got to do there. So it's 2x squared minus 20x equals 30. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is It's got my x squared next on the left, my constant on the right, so we're good there. Just divide everything by 2 so that we get a 1 in front of our x squared for our a value. And also, let's just add our blanks in there because we're going to do that anyway. Okay, so that's what we got to remember on those. Some of us forgot about that. Okay, so we got to have this a value 1 to complete the square. So what goes into blank? Colzito.
25.
Good. Half of 10 is 5. And then square it. Don't forget to square it. So that's how this 25 gets here. So the right side, I just add those. That's 29. And the left side, square root of x squared. What's in front of the 10? Square root of 25 squared. Now I can square root both sides. Okay. So again, those cancel each other out. It's just x minus 5. Plus or minus the square root of 29. And 29 is a prime number too. It's just 1 times 29, so I can't simplify it at all. And then add the 5 to bring it over and get x alone. So that's number 10. Questions on that? And then number 12, rearrange it. So you got x squared plus 10x plus blank equals 42 plus blank. So again, it was a 10x like this one, so it would have been 25 in our blank. And then it would have been x plus 5 squared equals 67, 42 plus 25, and then square root both sides. And you get x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 67. Then we jumped up to 20. That's negative 8 and positive 4. 22 is 3 plus or minus the square root of 5. 24 is another 10 here, so we filled in a 25 for the blank, and then we were supposed to factor it. It's x plus 5 squared. 26, you have to add the blanks on both sides, which would be 1. So you get negative 1 plus or minus the square, or 2 square root of 2. So if you had the square root of 8, you're right, but you had to simplify it into 2 radical 2. 28 was like number 10. You had to divide everything by 2 first. And it's 2 plus or minus the square root of 15. And then number 30, that had an odd b value. So let's go ahead and look at that one too. Just for practice on that. So we have x squared plus 3x, I think it was, minus 5. All right, so first thing is take the 5 over. Becomes positive 5 because I'm adding it to move it, right? Now I have this odd b value, so just write it as a fraction. And square it. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 2 is 4. Square the top and the bottom. Okay? So the square root of x squared, in front of the b is a plus. The square root of 9/4 is just 3 halves you started with. Don't put 1.5. Okay, on your calculator, just put 5 plus 9/4. 5 plus, always put my fractions in parentheses. 9 divided by 4. Oops, not 5. 4. All right? And then go math. Remember, hit enter twice. So it's 29/4. Okay? Now I square root both sides and finish it up. You guys okay with me? Is this helping? Am I going too fast?
No,
Square root of 29 won't reduce, but the square root of 4 is 2. Sammy, is that making sense? Olivia? Kennedy? Everybody else was here yesterday, right? Is this sinking in, those of you that were here? Making it seem a little easier now? First day it's pretty tough, second day it usually sinks in. All right, let's finish it up then. Since these are both halves, both twos, I just write one fraction. If they were different denominators, you could leave it as two separate fractions. Subtracting the 3 halves, that's why it's negative 3 then. Okay? Questions? Guys are awful quiet. We okay? All right. So today, just adding on to this a little bit. End of day 1 was there yesterday, so here we are. All right. It says write each function in vertex form and identify the vertex. Okay, so remember, vertex form was this. This is what it was when we first started this chapter. It was this. Vertex form was f of x equals a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. All right, remember hk was the what? Yeah, vertex was hk. Okay, so this number and that, right? Like if this is x minus 3, the h is 3. If it's x plus 3, the h is negative 3. Remember that? Okay? So, what we do is this. We go x squared plus 6x plus blank equals 7 plus blank. Just like we're doing a problem like yesterday. Okay, so what goes in the blank? Great. What's b? Right, divided by 2. Squared. Good. Questions? So, Trent, what's this become? Square root. Good. And then what's on the right side? 16. So, all I got to do now to get this to look like this is do what? Bring that back over. You see that? So it's going to be x plus 3 squared minus 16. What's my a value? 1. What's my vertex? Close. It's the opposite of this one. Negative 3. Negative 16.
Why is it negative again?
It's what makes this 0.
Oh, yeah.
So negative 3 plus 3 makes that a 0, right? Okay? All right. Okay. Now, what do I got to do to number 5 before I can get it in vertex form? Divided by 2. But when I go back and put it in here, okay, I got to remember a is what to start?
1.
No, well, it's got to be 1 to complete the square, but when I go back and write this,
2.
I'll have to put 2 there. Okay, so that's the tricky part, when a isn't 1, like that first one. Okay, so here's what we're doing. Okay, since I'm dividing by 2, so here's a tricky part. So this is, important. Pay attention for a sec here, or always pay attention. Just remember, when I'm working this, all right? We'll just leave it, 27 halves. I'm gonna have to multiply it by 2 when I go back. Okay? That's the tricky part. When I go back to get this part, HK. All right? So this is X minus, oh, I gotta put what here, sorry? 9. Half of 6, 3 squared, 9. All right, so that's X minus 3 squared. Okay? And that's an 18, right? So 27 halves plus 18. All right, and then math, fraction, 63 halves. Okay, so they probably put it as a decimal. All right. So did I do something wrong? I don't think so. Say that again? Well, maybe I don't put the 2 in there yet. Because the 2 I'm putting here, maybe I did it twice. If I leave at 9, that's the 45, right? So I think I did an extra step that I shouldn't have done. If I do, 27 halves plus 9, I think it's 45 halves, isn't it? 27 halves plus 9, and then hit, not seconds, sorry, math fraction. Yeah, it'd be 45 halves. So I did that prematurely on the 2. So this would be, I did it before I should have. All right, so the 45 halves. Okay, so then when I put the 2 in there, it's like multiplying this by, then I multiply this by 2. So that's where that 45. So this 2, I guess, I brought over here by multiplying. And then I subtract the 45. So I did an extra 2 in there. My bad. Okay, so just remember, I guess, that once we do this like normal, whatever this number was here, it's going to be moved up front here. Because you would have divided by whatever it was. You know, if it's a 3, I would have multiplied by 3 now. It would have been 45 thirds and made it 15. Okay? Okay. Maybe not. Let's go back. I guess that's it. Oh, you know what? That was the end of day 2, right? Let me see something. All right, let's do this one. You guys try this one, but put it in vertex form, just for practice of one of those. And then we'll go over here in a couple minutes. All right, let's see how you did. This again is a tricky one because what's A? Got that too, right? All right, so if I take the 2 out, divide by 2, I get x squared plus 5x plus blank equals 4 plus blank, right? Now, this is tricky also because what type of number is 5? Aha, so we do it like this, right? So 5 squared and 2 squared. Okay? So then when we factor it, square root of x squared, that sign, square root of that's 5 halves squared, and then I add those, 4 plus 25 fourths, hit math, enter twice. So that's 41 fourths. Okay? Now, to get it to look like vertex form, I gotta move this back over, right? But what was originally 2, so I gotta put 2 back in front. And I gotta multiply that by 2, which, when I multiply that by 2, it becomes 41/2. All right, I have that in my calculator, right? 41/4 times 2, and then hit math fraction again. So it's 41/2. Okay, so what's my vertex then?
-5, 1,041.
No, it's whatever that is, so that's still, okay? So that's a tricky problem. And I'm sure on the quiz, I won't give you one that tricky. Okay, but you guys understand better today? Completing the square, b over 2 squared, make sure a is 1. Okay? So, here's your assignment. There it is. 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58. 9 problems.
Yes, yeah, I did.